Thank you for downloading the Chase Smith podcast, proudly part of the Press Play Podcast Network. In this episode, I'm joined by the host of the premier fantasy podcast at P3, Jeff Thitoff. Tito, we offer comprehensive fantasy football season preview. You can catch all of our other episodes and extensive positional rankings on our premier fantasy podcast feed. Let's get it! With me today, the foremost fantasy football expert in all of Ohio, Tito. It's the most wonderful time of the year, man. What's going on?
Hey, what's going on there, Chase? Yeah, this is the best time. August 1st, calendar turns. That's when it gets serious. Players get to camp. We start getting bogus injury information. The Hall of Fame game's behind us. It's time to have fun with fantasy football now.
Fantasy football draft season is upon us, and here to help you with all of your draft needs, all of your highs and lows and sleepers and busts and who to draft, who not to draft. We are with you all of this month. We're going to come at you with a lot of episodes, Tito. We're going to post this episode. This is a kind of like a fantasy football draft preview, but then over at our premier fantasy football feed, premier fantasy podcast feed, we're going to post individual episodes about quarterbacks, about running backs, about wide receivers, tight ends, defensive special teams, and then an overall player ranking. You can find all of that at the Premier Fantasy Podcast with Tito. I'm going to be joining him kind of like this huge fantasy football draft preview. Tito, I'm excited, man. It's going to be a ton of fun.
It's going to be a lot of fun. And with every one of those episodes, too, even though we'll have one devoted to quarterbacks and one devoted to tight ends and whatnot, we will have news at the top of each one of those, kind of the latest news if it's affecting another position. So make sure you tune in to hear that as well with some of the ways. I'm always adjusting my board. My rankings get adjusted every day. Somebody moves up, somebody moves down in every position, multiple people usually. And we'll touch on some of that, too, at the outset of each one of those.
It's going to be great. And I can't wait to hear what you have all season long. Going to be bringing us waiver wire pickups, injury updates on Sunday morning. Guys, subscribe and follow the Premier Fantasy Podcast. Tito is the man. And Tito, I said at the jump here, you are the foremost fantasy football expert in Ohio. And that is no lie. Tito, you are the man. I don't know anyone else in Ohio who has the experience and knowledge and the breadth of wisdom that you do in fantasy football. You're the man.
I've been doing it since like third grade. Mr. Stas, we called him Stas, Mr. Stassforth, as a math project to get us guys that were big football fans and involved with math. We did a fantasy draft every Friday before school let out. And you had to draft your team just for that week. My first pick ever was Brian Sipe from the Cleveland Browns. And then we came back in on Monday and we went through and had to figure up our own stats and do exercises on probability, percentages, all those things. And that got me.
Don't try to get Browns fans on your side. You're wearing a Steelers hat as we speak. So don't try to throw that Sipe. Hey, you can like me, Browns fans. Don't try to do that. You know,
I love Brian Sipe. I've emailed him at San Diego State when he was the AD. I don't know if he's Steelers or not, but I've emailed him there before and told him about how I drafted him first like a goober. I drafted him first year in 1979, actually, whatever year it was. But
dude,
yeah,
that's probably printed out on the wall at San Diego State, man. It's like, remember that one?
Right.
No, so we're going to have a ton of fun. And I think combined, Tito, we probably have close to 50, maybe 60 years fantasy football experience. I've been playing since 2000 at least, or 2001. Really close to 20 years. You probably got 30, 40 years. I don't know. How many years would you say?
I think it's 41 or 42 for me.
And so, combined, we don't win every year.
No.
But we have won some leagues. Tito, people pay you to draft their teams. That's pretty remarkable.
I do some draft for people. Yeah. Some people still like me. Some people don't, but it never always works out. I'm not the only guy you should listen to. Do research.
Yes.
Go see what other people are saying, put together your draft board, and then, have your own compilation for your rankings. I don't want you to go into a draft with my list or someone else's list and say, I'm taking this guy here because he said so. This guy. Have some fun with it and trust your gut.
Look, and we're not the only ones who think that you're the best. Tito, you actually were the voice of fantasy football in Ohio, right? For a radio station here in Columbus, one you might have heard of before. I don't know.
Yeah, 97.1 The Fan there. I was the ESPN affiliate. And Scott Torgerson, when he was there, he's the one who really pushed for me to get with the program director and try to find a way to get a fantasy football show going. Start off the segment on Sundays for like 15 minutes, and it evolved into an hour show, then a 2-hour show, and appearances everywhere. Helped out drafts that way too, and it's been a lot of fun.
Well, we're going to have fun here as well. We're honored to have you on the Press Play Podcast Network, Tito, and you do an incredible job with Premier Fantasy Podcast. Let's kind of just give people a little bit of just kind of like fantasy overview. So if you've never played fantasy football before, or this is your 40th year playing, there's a couple different types of leagues that you'll find yourself maybe exploring in fantasy football world. There's a standard league with one quarterback where you start one quarterback, two running backs, two wide receivers, a tight end, a defense. And that could vary. You could start two quarterbacks. You could start, three running backs. You could do three receivers. There's usually a flex position where you could start either another running back, receiver, or tight end. There's all different types of leagues. And with that, there's all different types of scoring formats. And so all of these conversations that we're going to have, all of these rankings, all of these high lows, this guy I like, this guy I don't like, it's under the understanding that it's a standard league with standard scoring, which means running backs would get 6 points for a rushing touchdown. Quarterbacks get 4 for a throwing touchdown. But even within that, there's
touchdown 6. Any receiving touchdown is 6. Yeah. And then passing touchdowns 4. That's the big thing in standard. Mm-hmm. There's 6-point passing touchdown leagues, which is a huge difference in where you're going to draft quarterbacks. There's half point per reception, full point per reception. Mm-hmm. There's yardage bonuses sometimes. If you get 100 yards, you get rushing, you get X amount of bonus points. And there's super flex. You can flex the quarterback, which is a big difference also than if you've got to start 2 or going to start 2. So there's a lot of different ones out there. But the most popular ones are the standard ones, and then the PPR ones. Those are the most popular two, with standard being the easiest one. If you log into usually like a Yahoo or an ESPN site and sign up for a league, that's typically what the standard default settings will be. Although some now are leaning towards PPR, but it doesn't vary. It doesn't change that much. It'll change some certain players, like an Austin Eckler in a PPR league would have more value than he would in a standard league. But and if you get a guy, like a Keenan Allen, when he catches 100 passes for like 800 yards, the 100 passes helps out quite a bit more than the 800 yards would help out.
Correct. PPR points per reception. Just right. Again, if it's not familiar to you, there's also different types of leagues. So not only just with your roster makeup, but the point makeup, but the type of league. Some leagues are keeper leagues, which means when you draft a team, you get to select X amount of players to carry over your roster to the next year, and then all the other players get put into a pool. There's a dynasty league where you draft an entire team, and that whole entire team sticks with you, and you can trade draft picks, and you only draft rookie players. And then there's just a run-of-the-mill league where all the players are available, and every year they all go back into the bin, and you draft from everyone. Again, all of these conversations are going to be coming from a standard league with standard rules and standard ranking, standard players, standard roster format. Although all those variants, and we didn't even get into the different types of draft variants that could happen. Yeah. This is just going to be they're all auctions and snake draft, which anyway. So all these conversations are going to be coming from that. So before we get to players and who we like and argue about that, Tito, what just in your 30, 40 years experience, just some general overview fantasy draft tips that you may want to throw out there for us before we start talking about players?
If you haven't drafted yet, wait as long as possible to draft. Get as close to the regular season start as possible. Typically in the leagues that I run, I try to have the draft like right after the big league I'm in, the most important league in my life. We are drafting when the third preseason games are finishing on that Sunday. The Bengals play the Falcons, I think, at 4:00. The Browns play at 8:00. I mean, it's Browns-Falcons. There's 2 games, the Bengals and Browns back-to-back national television. We're drafting during those games. When most of the starters aren't playing, it's going to be a lot of backups in there, and rosters are set. If you drafted early, somebody in your league, if you drafted 2 weeks ago, somebody in your league got a steal with Aaron Rodgers, an absolute steal with Aaron Rodgers, and it tilts the league in the wrong way, I think. I'd rather have everybody with the same amount of information at the time of the draft and not let somebody win or get a huge advantage because of a fluky thing. We all thought, Aaron Rodgers, the boards in Vegas took all the Green Bay Packers bets off the board because they were convinced he was going to retire.
Yep. And you don't want to be that guy who drafts a Michael Thomas and then realize, he's either injured or not going to be on the team. You don't want to draft a running back right when they open drafting it and then he gets injured in the second preseason game. Like, you don't want to be that guy, because there's nothing worse than having your first couple picks get injured. It makes a long season, a lot of
Yeah,
grinding on the waiver wire, and it is just not fun to know you're the worst team and still have 12 games. Like, you just don't want that. You don't want to be week 6 and be like, my team sucks, I'm only going to win 5 games. You don't want that. You
right.
don't want that.
No, no, you don't do that. And there's no excuse to not have the latest information anymore, because you can go on the internet, you can get all of the latest, like the up to the second news of what's going on. I had a friend of mine whose mom knew he liked playing fantasy football, and one year for Christmas, she got him a fantasy football magazine from the beginning of that season. And so she thought, fantasy football, he likes it. Here it is, the rankings from 6 months earlier, whatever it was.
Yeah.
But there's no excuse to not have the most updated information.
Right.
When you get to your draft, don't have a set like, I'm going running back, my first 2 picks.
Mm-hmm.
Be flexible and make sure you're looking, because you might say you're going to go running back, and Devontae Adams might slip to you in the second round, late in the second round, because everybody else went running back. Don't stick to that running back thing. Be flexible in your draft and take the players that offer the best value.
And I think that's what makes drafts a little bit exciting, is that unknown, is like, oh, what is the person in front of me going to do? And we see this all the time in the NBA draft and the NFL draft. We see GMs and teams panic because, oh, I wasn't ready, or, oh, like, I was married to my draft board and I don't know what to do now because all my players, the guy I wanted is gone. We see this all the time. And I know if you've been in any fantasy draft, a team or a person panics, they don't know what to do, and they draft someone who's not in the league anymore. They draft someone who's injured, and you just have to go with the ebb and flow of the draft. Just to kind of put it in perspective, if you are picking 12, 15, and you notice Devontae Adams has dropped to you, and you're like, oh, do I want to draft him? Or, oh, there's Chris Carson, they're starting running back for the Seahawks. I'm looking at these Yahoo kind of like final stats for 2020. Devontae Adams would have been the 4th highest running back in the league last year, and over 100 more points than Chris Carson. So you start to kind of say, hey, like, what does this look like? Just because there's a huge run of running backs doesn't mean that you need to get a running back too. Very, very good advice.
Because Devontae Adams and the next running back you take combined are probably better than Chris Carson and the next receiver you take. Yeah. So, that's how you have to look at it too, and know your scoring system. That's important. You can do mock drafts, which are also very important. Do as many of those as you can, although sometimes they can be a dud because people don't take them seriously. But know your scoring system inside and out. Know if it's 4 points for a passing touchdown. Know if it's 6 for a passing touchdown. Know how many flex players you start, how many receivers you start. Know all of these things about it before your draft, so you can make sure you are drafting off the right list of guys on your sheet.
Yeah, it's so important. With those 6-point quarterback touchdown leagues, quarterbacks go in the first round.
Yep.
And they're more valuable. Patty Mahomes, Josh Allen.
Yep.
You look at even Kyler Murray, a little higher value in those. I mean, and not to touch on our quarterback conversations, but Dak Prescott, like those kind of players have more value with a 6-point passing touchdown league. And it's your responsibility to figure that out. We can't tell you what it is because every league's different. You can ask your commissioner, your league manager. They can tell you. Most of the scoring stats are available when you go to your league settings.
Yep.
But figure that out and make that a part of your draft strategy.
And make sure that you know yourself and your fellow owners and know what you want to get out of it. If you're a homer, and I've been in leagues with guys who are homers, and they will draft some of the players on their favorite team. If you're in a league full of Browns fans, the Browns. I know I got it.
Mr. Sipe.
Browns players will go higher than if you're in a draft with Steelers fans, or if you're in a room full of Buckeye fans. You'll see a lot of Buckeyes.
Oh my gosh, you'll see Najee Harris draft in the first round if you draft Steelers fans. Man, they're
not
just like
necessarily a bad move.
But, I love that.
Okay, we'll get to that later. But anyway, know your room and know yourself and have fun with it. If you're the kind of guy who has like a weird superstition or a team you hate or your favorite team's rival, if you're not gonna, you say, you know what, I'm not gonna take it with that team. That's okay. Have fun.
And it is fun. It is fun to get into the draft, and it's okay to like players. It's okay to like your team. I would caution though, if you like the Browns or you have a favorite NFL team and you draft a fantasy team with all those players, it can make for a long week when your team gets crushed and in turn your fantasy team gets crushed. You
Oh
talk
yeah.
about bye weeks. It makes for a long week if you have Baker Mayfield and Nick Chubb and even like Donovan Peoples-Jones or whatever. Like if you have
Yes.
all like these Browns players and we lose, we probably didn't do well fantasy wise, and then your team's going to lose, and then this is a double suck. But Tito,
Yes.
but when the Browns score 40 and everything's rolling,
Right.
and you win your league because you have the Browns, oh, it is a good Sunday, and you feel like you're a genius. So it's feast or famine if you do that. So
Right.
just buyer beware.
And to piggyback off that as well, know what kind of player you are, because that could affect some of the ways you draft. And let me give you an example. If in the league I'm in, the big league I'm in, I make the playoffs. I made the playoffs every year in this league except for one. Now my championships haven't matched up with that, but I've made the playoffs every year. So I go into my draft expecting to be in the playoffs.
Yep.
So you might see me take a flyer on somebody who I know is going to miss half the season because I'm not too concerned. I think I'll be able to manage my team okay in that time. If you're somebody who, my gosh, I've got to start fast. I always suck at the end. I make stupid moves. I lose guys on the waiver wire. I stop paying attention. Then you're not going to take somebody who might miss the first 3 or 4 games. Saquon Barkley is a good example, like Michael Thomas you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
If you think you can weather the storm because either you're cocky like I am, and you feel like you're superior to other guys in the league in a lot of ways, and you think that you can get away with it, that's fine.
Pretty
but
nice
if you're not,
flex, Tito. It's a good flex.
No, but like the championships haven't matched up. I make the
Yep.
playoffs every year though, and they always make
Yeah.
fun of me. They call me Mr. September
Yeah.
because I always fall apart and like I get some kind of fluke thing in the playoffs.
Yo,
But that's just
I love Barkley this year. Again, I can't wait. Our running back conversation is going to be dynamic. I think it's kind of like a race to 8 wins. If you can get to 7 or 8 wins, and this is before the 16-game season, if you can get to 7 or 8 wins, you're probably going to make the playoffs. And then anything's possible. I've seen so many times, Tito, where teams who kind of eke in because teams are coming on late, or
right.
teams who are really strong and they're 14-2, like their teams aren't as strong in the playoffs. And usually you want to get hot at the right time. And so I want to get 8 wins as soon as possible. I want to just make sure that I make the playoffs. I'm
Right.
not as confident that I'm going to automatically be in. So I'm trying to pick up those early week wins as much as I can, because fantasy football is freaking hard and it takes a lot of luck to win. It takes a lot of luck. A lot of things have to go your way to win a championship. And I just want a shot. Just get me in. And I've found over my years, if you can get 7 or 8 wins, you're probably going to make the playoffs. And so that's all I'm looking for. I'm not as confident as you are making the playoffs, man.
Well, there's one league I am. There's another league I'm fairly, but then there's a couple leagues that are a bit different beasts for me. Where I have different skill level players sometimes, or that you're going up against things. There's a lot of skill, but also a lot of luck involved in fantasy football. And I don't look at the postseason matchups too much because you're not sure who's going to be healthy on what teams when they're playing anyway. So, although sometimes I will look to see, well, let's see, a team like the Cowboys. Okay, they're playing indoors week 15, week 16, week 17 now. Maybe that's a reason to take Prescott at quarterback over someone who might be playing in very volatile weather, potentially playing
Yep.
at New England, at Buffalo, or something like that in 2 weeks in there. So
Yeah.
I look at that a little bit. That's more just to break ties. But like you, get to 7 or 8 wins, and then just start tweaking your roster.
Mm-hmm.
You can find a desperate person who just lost a guy who's
Yep.
trying to get to 7 or 8 wins still, and you can
Mm-hmm.
probably take advantage of the trade situation there, where you get somebody who's going to help this guy for 3 weeks. You get somebody who can help you 4, 5, 6 weeks down the road.
Let's talk about quarterbacks and some general tips looking at quarterbacks for your league. Whenever you go to draft a quarterback, Tito, are you looking at head coach stability? You're looking at scheme? You're looking at weapons? Are you looking at last year's points? What are you looking at mostly for quarterbacks when you go to draft?
Well, you look at consistency and who's performed well consecutive years. The one-hit wonders, Browns fans know Derek Anderson's a great example of that. Somebody has a great year and then stumbles. Jared Goff, same kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody who, and even Carson Wentz to a certain extent, guys who have like one great year, a couple of great years that are abnormal,
Mm-hmm.
and then they fall back down. So look at consistency there. I also look at the coaching scheme and the weapons they have around them. And that's why Mahomes, Josh Allen, who can also beat with his legs, that's why they're the top 2 for me.
Mm-hmm.
Mahomes and Allen are the ones and those are the ones that get drafted first. But I typically don't like to spend an early pick on a quarterback. I like to wait it out a little bit. And I try to you can grab a lot of value in quarterbacks. If you don't take the top 3, 4, or 5, You get a lot of guys down in the 6 to 15 range. They're still going to be really good. And there's not a huge gap between like the 4th and 5th, 6th best quarterbacks versus like the 9th, 10th, and 11th usually.
Right. And the quarterback position is the one where you can find the most value later in the drafts. It's the position where people start the least. If you have 12 teams in your league, there's only 12 starting quarterbacks. There is really no, if you miss out on those first couple top tier quarterbacks, unless you're really sold on a player, like you can wait a little bit and not have a lot of variance in your quarterback scoring. That's going to, be any different than any other player if you would have drafted 3 or 4 rounds earlier.
The gap between the top, like the 5th best running back and the 10th best running back is wider than the gap between the 5th best quarterback and 10th best quarterback.
And it's even larger in tight ends, like the top tight ends. It's even a larger disparity, which I think goes into a strategy we'll talk about, here in a little bit. There's tight ends. There's no parity in tight ends.
No, there's not. If you don't get one of the top 2, 3, or 4, you can wait and get the 12th best tight end. It may still end up having a guy who's a top 5 tight end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And very rarely is there a surprise tight end who comes on of the year. You're like, no one saw that coming.
Right.
Like generally tight ends, they're easy to predict. You know who's going to be schemed around. Unless you get that red zone specialty, there's 4 or 5 tight ends that are going to make a difference in your fantasy league, and that's it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you might get a tight end. You might get the weird one where he catches 26 passes on the year, but 6 are for touchdowns.
Yeah.
But that doesn't happen very often. And the tight ends. Yeah. If you get one of the top ones, that's great. I don't usually I try not to overdraft for a tight end though. I think you can find the 6th, 7th, 8th best tight end and still get by with strengths at your other positions.
Yep. Hey, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to start talking about who we're high on, who we're low on, quarterbacks, running backs, receivers. We're going to have some fun. Tito, stick around. We'll be right back.
Hello, Brooks here with the Books with Brooks monthly book club podcast. We read one book a month and then we talk about it. Books like Stephen King's The Shining or Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. If you're on the hunt for book recommendations and enjoy sparkling conversation, come read along with us and then listen in.
Looking for new insights on the Cleveland sports scene with a unique side of Cleveland sports history? Then you found the perfect podcast. I'm John Sable.
And I'm Scott Sable, and we're hosts of the Sable Brothers on the Baseline podcast, a podcast about Cleveland sports, but not your typical podcast about the land's sports teams. Join us as we embark on a journey of sharing a unique and historical side of Cleveland sports history with the help of some former Cleveland sports stars and other historical figures.
All right here on the Sable Brothers on the Baseline podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hey, I'm Jason.
And I'm Gary, and we love ball cards.
And if you love ball cards too, good news. You just found your new favorite podcast. From breaks to grading.
And from collecting to flipping, join us on the Ball Card Show.
The sports podcast for the sports collector.
Want to hear more about your favorite TV shows and movies that are on countless streaming services?
Then listen to Up Next with your new favorite hosts, me, Kristen Aviles,
and me, Christina Walter.
Every other week we'll highlight one genre, but 2 movies or TV shows, one old and one new.
We'll let you know what's hot and what's not from your favorite
or least favorite
streaming services.
And be sure to stay tuned to the end of each episode where we shout out an artist whose name you should know for their talent in the industry.
So follow us to stay up to date with your favorite hosts from Up Next,
a part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hello, this is Don Mike Mendoza, the host of the Producing While Asian podcast. Join us to listen in on conversations with everyone who identify from producers to non-producers who all are part of the AAPI community. There's all that and more on the Producing While Asian podcast here on the Press Play Podcast Network.
It's not a rumor, it's the truth. Ray Guy and Roder are back together again with the R&R podcast on the Press Play Podcast Network. We're going to talk Browns. We're going to talk Cavs, Indians, even if they're not playing well, which might happen. We're going to talk monsters. We're going to talk college football. You name it. When it comes to sports, Ray Guy and Rhoda, we're going to break it down for you as only we can. So make sure you join us right here on the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hi, my
My name is Sam Post, owner of Phenomenal CBD Store and PhenomenalCBD.com. That's like phenomenal, CBD.com. Tune in where we talk with experts about how the amazing hemp plant can make a difference for people's health and well-being from the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hey there, this is Brent Spillin, co-host of a Swingin' a Tribe MLB podcast. Listen, we're just a couple of fans who love to talk everything Cleveland Indians baseball. If you're a fan like us, then this is the podcast for you. Go Tribe.
Hey everybody, it's Sam Amico from Cavs on the Break NBA podcast. Be sure to give us a listen for all your Cleveland Cavaliers recaps, analysis, breakdowns, draft talk, free agency. The list goes on and on. Give us a listen, Cavs on the Break NBA podcast.
For the Dennis Maniloff Show, I'll tap into my 40-plus years of following Cleveland sports and 30-plus years of writing and talking about them, so as to bring you informed opinions and analysis of your favorite players and teams. I also will monitor the national sports scene and, when warranted, step out of the toy department and into the real world. And I'll always be on the lookout for special guests. By all means, join us.
Hey, it's JD from the Hyman Podcast. I created this podcast to have hard conversations. Conversations that make us human but are also wildly uncomfortable. Conversations that help give voice to the voiceless and to the marginalized. Now you can listen to the entire first season on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from. Consider this your personal invitation to join the conversation.
Hi, my name is Jeremy Powell, co-host of the Oranges, Oranger, Browns podcast. Check us out anywhere you listen to podcasts. For all your Browns coverage, post-game, pre-game, anything you need Browns, you'll find it here on the Oranges, Oranger, Browns podcast.
All right, we are back, the Chase Smith podcast. Here with me, Tito, talking all fantasy football draft strategy. You can also check this out in the Premier Fantasy podcast feed. Tito, let's talk about quarterbacks. Well, actually, no, let's hold off. I think this conversation will naturally go there. Let's talk about players that we're high on, players that we're low on, players that we just feel really good about going into the season.
Well, I'll tell you, the guy I love this year, and I think you can get a very good value on him. Especially now he's got a shoulder injury he's nursing, but he should be okay. Dak Prescott for Dallas. What I love about him is, first, he was on pace for like 6,000 yards last year when he got hurt.
They were MVP talks, like the first quarter of the season. It was like Dak, MVP.
And their offensive line is great again. Zeke's in great shape.
Yes.
And their defense sucks, which is a great combination there because they're going to be playing from behind a lot, playing in shootouts quite a bit. And Prescott's going to throw the ball a lot. So Dak Prescott, I've got him as my third-ranked quarterback. I've got him ahead of a lot of guys that people have ranked higher. I've got him ahead of Wilson, Rodgers, Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray. I've got him ahead of all those guys. I think Prescott's the third-best quarterback this year.
Yeah, I don't think that's a reach at all. I think people will not draft him that high. I think names will go before him, and I think he very well could be in the really top 2 points at the end of the year. If we're at the end of 2021 looking at the points, I would not be surprised to see Dak in that, vying for the top 2 positions at quarterback points. I think you're going to see names go ahead of him. You're going to see Mahomes go. If anyone reads any books, looks at any draft, where they're going to see Josh Allen. He's getting an MVP buzz already. Names, Brady might go before him if people just go on namesake. Rodgers will probably go before him. Yep. You start looking at names that people just like legacy names. You might even see Lamar Jackson go before him, which I don't agree with, but you just never know. And you can get great value for Dak. I'm super high on Dak. I agree. I think Dak is a great pick. Another quarterback. I love Tito, Matt Stafford. What?
I love me some Stafford. Going there after having all the changes and challenges he had in Detroit, with the stale offense, not many weapons. He gets over there now with McVay. McVay is really good with the quarterbacks, and they play in a faster offense. They're going to run more plays than Stafford ran in Detroit on a per-game basis. Just that's the way that McVay coaches them up. And Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp on that team, Deshaun Jackson now. And the fact that everyone running backs out now even gives more value to Stafford. I think the Rams are a dark horse Super Bowl team, and I think Stafford is going to lead the league in passing yards this year.
Yep. I have Dak, Stafford, and Russ in that second tier. I have Mahomes, Allen. I have Kyler Murray at my third spot. I think Kyler Murray in Arizona, they got AJ Green's looking fresh. I just think they have a lot of tools on offense, and it's all centered around Kyler Murray. And I think he's a better passer than Lamar. I think he has that running kind of like threat, like Josh Allen and Mahomes and really Rodgers. Some of these higher quarterbacks, they can beat you with their legs as well. But I have Kyler Murray. But yeah, that's kind of where I got. But then I got my boy Bake coming in his own tier 3.
Of course you do.
Of course I do. Yeah. Baker, Burrow, Herbert. I've had Lamar here, and I think Matt Ryan is going to find himself a little good fantasy year this year. You're not high on Baker, Tito. Tell me why.
No, I'm not high on Baker. I think that I think they're going to continue to pound the ball, and I think that they've invested so much money in that backfield, and that's when they have a lot of success too. Is when they get ahead and control the game, and I think they're going to keep on feeding those guys. They're going to keep feeding Chubb and Hunt. And I don't know about OBJ, his health. I know Landry's a great possession receiver who will catch that little 6 and 7 yard pass or whatever. He'll end up having 5 catches for 42 yards in the game, but he'll get a touchdown. He's effective. I love Jarvis Landry in a PPR league.
Yeah.
But I think they're going to run the ball a lot.
All right. Here's the case for Baker, Tito. You ready?
All
right. I'm going to take you to school, man.
I got the notebook out. Go ahead.
Yeah, here we go. The Browns adopted advanced analytics. That's all we've heard about. It's been a huge source of contention the past 4 or 5 years. We're finally all on the same page.
Right.
And advanced analytics shows that teams throw for the lead and run for the win. And I think we are the best team at running for the victory. But I think when you look at the team last year, starting with Cincinnati, you saw Baker morph into this competent, he was already confident, accurate deep ball passer that was advertised coming out of Oklahoma. And you saw him will us to victory in Cincinnati, dominate an AFC favorite in Tennessee, almost threw us for a victory on Monday night against the Ravens, the best game of the season.
Sure.
And he just was able to do what he needed to so we could run for the win. We have the best line in the league. And I know you roll your eyes at that, but I really think we have one of the best lines.
One of the best lines, I would say.
I just think that you're going to find him as a top 7, 8, 9, 10 quarterback fantasy wise. And I think he's going to be in the MVP discussion. I think he's going to win, but I think that conversation goes as like the team success goes. And I think the Browns are going to have a really, really good year. And I think Baker's going to see dividends in that. I think we are healthy. This is his first year. He's had the same system, the same coach. And I think it's all lining up for this to happen. And I think this is going to be his year.
And that's where a lot of people's rankings can vary. I always call it the if-then theory, where if you believe that the Browns are going to throw a lot, and if you believe that that's the way it's going to be, then you got Baker Mayfield higher than me.
They might not throw a lot. They might be up after the first quarter and then run. But I do think we are going to throw for the lead. I really do.
And so, that's the thing. Just like if you talk about the Colts situation, if you believe Carson Wentz is critical to Jonathan Taylor's success, then you're a little concerned about Jonathan Taylor right now because of we're not sure when exactly. Wentz was back in practice today. Wasn't practicing. He was back there today, but without a boot or anything on. But if you believe that Carson Wentz is a mediocre quarterback and it's not going to affect things, then you probably have Jonathan Taylor ranked higher.
I am not high on Tom Brady. I think he's going to have a good year. I think he's going to be overdrafted, and I'd be surprised if a team won their league with Tom Brady as their quarterback.
I would agree with that. I think that I think Brady is, you keep waiting, for that. Like Max Kellerman called it 3 years ago, the cliff that Brady was going to hit, and he's been great since then. But it's going to happen at some point. I think there's too many weapons around him and too good of a coaching staff there.
Oh my gosh, I would love to be quarterback for that team. Are you kidding me? Those receivers are just insane. The tight ends. I mean, I could be eating crow come week 7. He could be the top point scorer in fantasy football. He really could, but I'm not high on him.
No, I don't think he will. I've got him ranked 10th among my quarterbacks, so it's where I've got him, well ahead of Mayfield. I've got him 10th though.
Oh, whoa, that was just that was unnecessary.
Just throwing it out there. I got it right behind Herbert.
Oh, geez, yeah, I have Matt Ryan in that 10th spot. But yeah, I'm not high on Brady, but I would not be surprised if I'm eating crow here 8 weeks in and he's near the top just because of all those weapons and what they have. It's the marathon for Brady. He's not playing to light it up in week 4 when he's, you know what I mean? He's like, hey, we're going to get to the playoffs, and then I'm going to do what I can to win. And
I don't see a 5-touchdown game out of him. I see a lot of 2-touchdown games. Have an 8-minute drive, work it down the field, give it to Fournette or Ronald Jones. Let them pound it. And I see a lot of that kind of more of a balanced offense than probably a lot of teams.
Doesn't bode well for, for fantasy owners. But Brady could be like, yo, I'm going to show these guys that I still got it. And that's just, let's air it out. I don't know. I wouldn't bet on it though. All right, what about running backs? Who you high on with the running backs, Tito?
Well, I love Aaron Jones this year. I think he ends up being like the 4th, 5th, 6th running back taken sometimes. I've got him 3rd, right behind Christian McCaffrey and Dalvin Cook for me. But I think that Aaron Jones, Green Bay having Rodgers back there is for another year, and going for it, I've got Aaron Jones 3rd.
Dude, I don't even have any of those running backs in my top 3, Tito.
You don't have Cook, Christian McCaffrey, or Aaron Jones in your top 3?
No.
God, I got to get in the league with you.
I got Henny 1, Barkley 2, Kamara 3.
Okay. My case against Henry is
Derrick Henry. Sorry,
I can't remember the name of the running back who Dallas ran into the ground and went to like Philly and then Houston or Tennessee. Who was that? There's a running back they got a ton of carries and then was never the same.
DeMarco Murray.
DeMarco Murray.
Let's go.
Okay, well done. DeMarco Murray had that huge year, and then the next year played 8 games. I don't think he ever played more than 9 games in a season after that. But Henry's got so many carries on his body.
Yeah, and then LT's back up. Is it Michael Turner, who went to the Falcons, had a great year, high volume, and then he hit a wall. This is a thing. It is something to be conscious of. What are some more recent examples of this?
Well, you've got it happened with Larry Johnson for the Chiefs. Certainly he fell off big time.
Yeah.
Jamal Anderson, that's a little further back. Now I'm dating before you even started playing fantasy football. Those guys certainly had that issue. Arian Foster was another one.
Yeah.
Sean Alexander to a certain extent, I believe that happened with him as well. And
this
Chris
happens.
Johnson.
So look, like that's great, but put a little respect on the name, man. Derrick Henry is no Arian Foster he's no DeMarco Murray, that's for sure. I think he's a generational talent that's really going to challenge Eddie George for like the best Tennessee running back that the Titans have ever seen, the Oilers or whatever. And I just think he's going to be special, and he's built different. He's, not human.
Right.
And I don't know. I think
I'm dating myself here, but you're forgetting about Earl Campbell too. Earl Campbell was pretty good in the Houston uniform.
Yes, I think Henry might be better. So I just think McCaffrey coming off injury, show me that you can go back to your number 1 king running back spot. I say that, then I have Barkley ranked 2. So I understand that. I understand the hypocrisy. I just think for all McCaffrey does, he does so much. Like, show me you can do it again, and then I will put you a little higher. I'd rather have Kamara than McCaffrey, just because Kamara, even though he can't, he has been injured. He didn't miss seasons of time like we saw McCaffrey do.
My problem with Kamara is the Saints offense. I don't know who's going to be quarterback there. That concerns me a little bit. And if not having Michael Thomas for the first 6 or 7 games might make Kamara get more touches, doesn't need to be more successful. Teams can key on him.
So, okay, yes, let's talk about that. When you're drafting running backs, are you looking for touches? Are you looking for schemes? Are you looking that they don't have a good backup? So, like, for instance, the Browns, they have Chubb and Hunt. They're going to share time. That's going to diminish both of their value, but there's still value there. I don't even know Tennessee's backup. I don't know. You know that Ezekiel Elliott, Tony Pollard, that's a handcuff you need. Kamara's backup. Is that Murray?
Murray, I believe still. Yeah, Murray be the one there. Yes.
And so there are these guys that like, what are you looking for when you're are you looking for touch? Or are you looking for the term is bell cow, where they're the only running back who gets all the work? Is that what you're looking for?
The 3 down backs, ones who are going to get a lot of touches, get the first, second, even third down touches. Those are the ones that you really look for too. Mm-hmm. And then, so I look at that. I look at some durability also. I know that CMC is coming off an injury, but he was on pace. He was on an incredible pace before he got hurt as far as fantasy points. He was averaging almost like 30 points a game or some ridiculous number before he got hurt last year. Early on, I get that. Dalvin Cook gets a lot of goal line carries inside the 5-yard line. He gets a ton of carries in there. The Vikings give him the ball a lot. That's the reason he's got a lot of value. Plus the fact that he could have a game where he rushes 12 times for 24 yards. But like McCaffrey, he also can catch 6 passes for 70 yards in that same game and score a touchdown. So look at guys who can be versatile that way as well. Austin Eckler, another guy, especially if you're in a PPR league, someone like that.
Eckler's the Chargers running back.
So that's where I'm concerned, though, about someone like him because of the touches. And I'm concerned about Barkley just because he's still not all the way healthy yet. I know he's not the pup list now, but he's not all the way there yet.
So where's the break in running backs? Where is the, like, you need to have these guys if you want to really make some noise? Like, where is that cutoff at?
Well, for me, like, I've got my top 5 are where now I'm not saying Henry's a huge drop off. Henry's my 6th rated running back, though. But I've got Cook, CMC.
Man, I've got to get in a league with you.
Aaron Jones, and then I Kamara and Zeke Elliott. I've got Zeke ahead of Henry. And part of that's because I'm such a believer in the Cowboys offense. And I think that when Prescott's there with the good offensive line, Elliott seems recommitted. After that, it's kind of a small drop off for me. Not huge, but Henry, Harris, I've got Gibson, I've got Mixon, then I've got Chubb. I know you're waiting for that one, weren't you?
You have Harris above Chubb?
I do have Harris above Chubb.
Oh,
Harris can have more touches than Chubb. That's what I like about it.
Gosh.
Okay. Because there will be, like you mentioned, some touches. Chubb and Hunt. Hunt's going to get his carries. They're both going to be successful. Don't get me wrong. But if Hunt wasn't there, I'd have Chubb ranked higher. But there's no one. Harris is the guy in Pittsburgh. He's going to get 300 touches.
Who's going to block for him?
The offensive line, admittedly, not great. No doubt about it. Yes, probably one of the bottom 5 or 6 offensive lines in the league.
Najee Harris's value will be the highest week 1 before Ben gets hurt, before everyone sees that they have to zero in on Harris every down of every play.
Right.
I mean, it's the dude. The
I
fact that
Harris,
you have Harris ranked above Chubb is criminal.
Well, we'll see. I hope we can mark it down. I think by the end of the season, Harris will have more fantasy points than Chubb.
No.
I think at the end of the season, we'll see it. But the Browns as a team, running back wise, they will run the ball better than the Steelers will all day long. No doubt about it.
So in that, so I have that Henny, Barkley, Kamara, McCaffrey, Cook kind of all in.
Right.
I have Aaron Jones leading like the next tier, which he's always undervalued. So that's admittedly, but then I have Jones, Zeke, Chubb. I have Taylor and Josh Jacobs there. Josh Jacobs, the Raiders running back, not getting a lot of talk this season. What's going on there? They signed a running back, didn't they?
Yeah. The reason is because they went out and added another running back there, Kenyon Drake. They gave Kenyon Drake money that eclipses a lot of starting running backs salaries on other teams. And so they brought Drake in. I like Jacobs too. I think he's a great talent. I wasn't sure why they would go out and spend that money, on another running back there, but they must see something they like in Drake. So I think that although I do believe Jacobs will still lead the team in touches. Jacobs is the best running back on that team. It's kind of like the Browns situation, though, where you've got another viable guy behind who they believe in. Much like the Browns believe in Kareem Hunt, I think the Raiders have some belief there in Kenyon Drake, and that's why they got him.
Why are you so high on Najee Harris and not Jonathan Taylor?
Well, Jonathan Taylor, I'm worried about the offensive line situation. Now, great, I know. We're Steelers situation.
You're talking. Just keep talking because this is great.
Keep talking. I'm going to justify this case. Listen to me. Now, Najee Harris is a better talent and a better running back than Jonathan Taylor is.
We've seen Taylor do it in the NFL. We haven't seen Najee Harris do anything other than wear a suit and do something for kids somewhere. I forget what they highlighted in the draft.
And he didn't look imposing or outstanding against Dallas in the preseason game.
He looked great the draft. I just
drafted in the Hall of Fame game. He didn't have 8 carries for 100 yards. But I believe in the Steelers' offensive scheme, and I think that Harris is going to. I think at the end of the day, he's going to have more fantasy points than Taylor. He's a bigger back, and I think that he's. I don't know who the Colts quarterback is going to be. I'm not sure what other weapons they have on that team. I'll take the Steelers receivers over the Colts, which opens things up for the running game a little bit. Sometimes you can improve your offensive line by improving your running back. And that's what the Steelers have done, I think. So, yeah, I've got them ahead of them. I want to see what goes on with Wentz. I want to see about the offensive line if those guys all come back.
You know, we just talked about knowing yourself and having homer picks. I just I don't know, man. I'm glad people in Pittsburgh are excited for something because there's been not a lot of excitement in Pittsburgh. I don't mind talking about this a little bit. Pittsburgh, sure. If people were to pick any roster in the AFC North, they would not pick the Pittsburgh Steelers. They would be it would be the fourth pick. They would be the last. Trajectory has been down the last couple years. You haven't had good drafts, and here is Najee Harris, who is this guy who's supposed to save the franchise. He's supposed to do it all, and we haven't seen him do anything.
We haven't yet. No. Look, I'm with you on
that. It's kind of cute coming from like a Browns fans to see this. It's really like, what world are we living in? This is Cleveland stuff, man. You're getting a little Brownsy on us.
No, I'm gonna tell you right now that if I could take one roster in the AFC North, I would take the Browns roster. No doubt about it. They've got the best defense in the division. They've got probably the third or second best defense overall in the NFL. I love what they're doing.
Let me ask you this. Kenny Rhoda is he hosts Ray Guy and Rhoda with us.
Yeah.
He is not a Mike Tomlin fan. Do you believe in Mike Tomlin?
I believe in Mike Tomlin. Yeah, I think Mike Tomlin's a really good coach. Mm-hmm. I think Mike Tomlin does a really good job of building and keeping a culture there in Pittsburgh. He's not going to be a flashy offensive guru kind of guy. He's going to be a guy who has to have good assistants around him. I think he does a pretty good job of that usually. The fact he's never had a losing season there, though, is amazing. Yeah. And the fact the Steelers have had 3 head coaches, Noel, Cowher, and now Tomlin, that have covered all those years, is amazing.
The model of consistency, that's for sure. We spent way too much time talking about the Steelers. I wish you the very worst luck, Tito, in this season coming up. But okay, Najee Harris will get touches. He will try to do everything. So if volume is your thing, Tito, I have a rule that in all of my years playing fantasy football, I have never drafted, started, or kept on my roster anyone that's in the AFC North that's not in the Browns. I don't go all in on the Browns, so I'm not gonna have an all Browns roster. But I can't find myself on Sunday saying, well, hey, at least Chase Claypool scored a touchdown. Like I can't do that. I don't want him to ever score. So it doesn't matter what player I need, what player's available. I am not going to draft anyone from the Ravens, the Bengals, or the Steelers. And I've been made fun of. I passed on Antonio Brown one year and they're like, why would you do that? I know those should have been these smart fantasy plays.
Right.
I just can't, as a fan, I just can't do it.
See, I don't go to that extreme. I justify it in my mind by, okay, you know what? I've got Chubb. I got a great value because I got him as the 11th best running back. I got Chubb there. And I can say, I hope Chubb rushes for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns, and the Browns lose, and all my other guys are great. That's how I can. That's how I can do. I can sit there and root for it, and not necessarily. I won't watch Chubb play. So I'm not going to watch the Browns game usually unless they're playing Pittsburgh. But I don't have that strong of a thought towards that with fantasy football. I still try to get the best players.
Yeah.
Luckily for me, though, it hasn't been Browns for most years.
That's true. We've been a fantasy desert, except for that Derek Anderson anomaly year.
That 1 year.
That 1 year. But hey, the tables have turned. All right. So we have those those starting RB1s is what you'll kind of hear, like running back one. That'll be starting every week, no matter the matchup. You got to do that. And then it kind of drops. Then we have James Robinson, Chris Carson, David Montgomery, the Bears running back people are high on. Austin Eckler, you mentioned earlier.
Right.
A lot of these running backs who would be great if, they're your second running back. If they're your first, you might need to be creative and try to make some trades.
Yeah, Henderson for the Rams is someone I watch with Cam Akers being out now. Last year, Henderson had a couple of big games early on in the season when Akers was still battling some injuries and wasn't 100%. He had a 100-yard game in there, scored a few touchdowns also. That's someone, if the Rams don't add another running back, that's a guy I'm looking at quite a bit as far as someone to grab there. Another one is Melvin Gordon in Denver.
Yeah.
Gordon's somebody else who could be a sneaky guy to get as your third running back or fourth running back, depending on where he falls in your draft. But those are a couple guys I'm looking at, though, and also Damian Harris in New England.
Yeah. Let's talk about wide receivers, Tito. is this one of the deepest fantasy wide receiver drafts in recent years?
Yeah, it gets deeper every year because the NFL is so geared towards the passing game now. And to your point about the Browns, how they can pass the ball and zip it over the field. You can complete so many passes now, and teams pass more now than they run. And so there's so many more receivers you can go to that are going to be able to put up fantasy numbers. Whereas the third running back on a team is not worth owning usually. The third wide receiver on a team a lot of the times is worth owning.
Yep.
So that's where the difference is. There are so many receivers you can choose from this year. It's such a deep, and the ones that came in this year and the rookies this year came in also.
You know, it's pretty top heavy though. It's very much like the tight end field. You have 3 or 4 receivers that separate themselves, but then you have this huge pool of receivers that, you know, if you just look at numbers, you're like, well, why are there 25 receivers who score, you know, 7 to 11 points a week? Like there's really kind of top heavy.
And that's where you got to make sure when you're drafting, you're paying attention if it's a PPR league or a standard league, because that could change a few guys' big numbers. But like, you know, someone who I like, I mean, you brought up Terry McLaurin to me a while back about him being, if I thought he was a top 10 receiver this year. I've got him just outside my top 10. But
that's Washington football team.
Yeah, Washington football team. He's got Ryan Fitzpatrick thrown to him this year, better than he had.
It's magic, baby.
It's magic.
Gunslinging.
Guys have to fall off. Someone's got to fall off. He's got to fall off eventually. But I like him quite a bit this year. CeeDee Lamb was really good when Prescott was healthy last year. Like he was putting up great numbers right along there with him. And that's somebody who I'm hoping to be able to get also in the drafts at a decent value as well. I've got him ranked as my 14th or 13th highest receiver.
I'm high on all of the top end receivers: Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, Stephon Diggs, DK Metcalf, Calvin Ridley. Kind of, you know, rounds out that. Some people have Diggs listed as wide receiver 1. Are you buying that, Tito? Or are you selling that?
I've got him at 2. I think that I think it's Adams and then Diggs is 2. I've actually got Calvin Ridley 3 ahead of Tyreek Hill. But Adams going to catch a ton of passes. The Packers are going to be throwing a lot to him. And if you're looking for sleeper receivers, by the way, 2 guys that you know you should probably consider is I like Gallup in Dallas. Michael Gallup in Dallas. He's a guy who's going to get a lot of looks. Also, he's somebody who's going to be. I think that Dallas, with all the throwing they're going to do, I think he's someone that you want to look at. Also, Brett Perryman in Detroit. He's going to be the #1 receiver there. Rashad Perryman, sorry. Rashad Perryman. Brett Perryman was an old guy, but Rashad Perryman in Detroit, though. I think that he's just going to have the volume there that's going to make him valuable as someone you can look at to get as a sleeper kind of late in your draft.
And I think if you like certain quarterbacks, like if you think Dak's going to have a great year, double up on that kind of like Dallas quarterback, Dallas receiver tandem. If you think Stafford's going to light it up, Robert Woods or, you know, like, are you pro quarterback receiver tandem strategy on fantasy teams?
I don't deliberately.
Or is that top heavy? Is that top heavy?
Yeah, I don't deliberately go out and do it, but if I'm close on a couple of guys, then I'll probably take the guy who's going to be my quarterback. Like I've got Woods higher than most people. I've got Woods 6th among my receivers right now. So, you know, I like Stafford, like I told you. If it makes sense in that area, like if I've got a couple of guys I'm looking at, and Woods is one of them, I've already got Stafford, I might go ahead and take Woods because of that. That's more of a daily fantasy strategy, I think. I don't do it a lot in season-long fantasy. 2 more guys I like real quick. Antonio Brown in Tampa Bay, when he was when he got on the field with Tampa Bay, Brady looked at him a lot. He got a ton of targets down the stretch. And also Randall Cobb in Green Bay. Look, Aaron Rodgers, however you feel about how he handled things in the offseason, he told them, I want Randall Cobb. Now, if you don't think he's going to throw to Randall Cobb a lot because he wants to be right, then you're out of your mind. He's going to look to Randall Cobb, no matter if Randall Cobb deserves it or not. Randall Cobb's going to get a lot of looks from Aaron Rodgers. That's another guy I like too.
That's good. What are some rookie receivers you're liking this year? There's a ton of talent, and I think you have to. Travis Etienne will be the running back receiver specialist. You'll see designated by his name in fantasy draft teams. Where are you at with the rookie receivers?
Well, you know, it's early on, and I want to see what they're doing in camp. Like I'm hearing a lot of bad things about Jamar Chase and the Bengals offense in general. I was pretty high on him going in, and it seems like all the news coming out of Cincinnati so far has been bad about the offense, including with Chase dropping passes. So whereas a couple weeks ago I probably had Chase as the highest ranked receiver, and I had Smith from Philadelphia, the kid from Alabama, Devonta Smith. I had him high also, and now he's hurt. So when you look around and you've got I mean, I don't have Waddle in Miami might be the highest one now for me, but I don't love Miami receivers anyway because I'm not completely sold on Tua
yeah,
as a passer. So there's not a lot of rookie receivers I'm really looking at and saying I got to get that guy. You know, I'm not that high on them right now.
A lot of talk going into the draft. You know, a lot of receivers taken. And if you like any long term, you play that dynasty keeper league. Those are some names you want to look at. Tight end. Let's talk about tight end real quick, and then we'll wrap things up here. Tight end, very, very, very top heavy. That you'll find the most point disparity among the top tier tight ends and the, 6, 7, 8 tight ends than any other position in fantasy football.
I mean, Kelsey's the gold standard in Kansas City. I probably won't have Kelsey in any of my leagues because I'm not going to draft a tight end high enough to do that. Kelsey, I've seen him in some leagues going late in the first round in like a 12-team league. I'm not going to spend a first-round pick on a tight end. Darren Waller, I think, is the next best tight end. The only downside, he's missed 8 days in a row of practice. Now, they haven't said why. They've just undisclosed injury. I hope he's okay. I love Darren Waller. I've got, Kittle. That's probably where the drop-off starts. But if I can get T.J. Hawkinson later on, I think Hawkinson's top 5 tight end this year in Detroit. I think that Goff's going to lift him quite a bit.
You mentioned that. We talked a little bit ago. You're not big on Andrews, Ravens tight end?
Andrews is the next guy for me right there at 5. But after that, then you start looking at Noah Fant, Kyle Pitts. Rookie tight ends usually don't have great years in the NFL anyway. So I'm kind of holding on Pitts till I see what he does in the preseason a little bit. But you can get great value with Tyler Higbee, the tight end for the Rams. He's clearly their top tight end option. And I think he's going to get because I think the Rams are going to score a lot. I think you'll see him get a lot of opportunities. You can go with Robert Tonyan in Green Bay. Roger's going to throw for a lot of touchdown passes. I even, I'm starting to warm up to Austin Hooper a little bit in Cleveland as someone who could be a red zone guy.
He has not had a strong camp. I don't know if you've heard.
Yeah, he has a great camp. Yeah.
Njoku and even Harrison Bryant, I think, is our backup tight end. He's gained like 13 pounds, and he plays well when he's given the chance. There was even talk about, well, why isn't Njoku tight end 1, which is just an insane. I'm not an Njoku fan either. But Hooper has not had a strong camp, and he needed a strong camp.
And I'll give you one more guy that if you wait too long on tight ends and there's Jared Cook for the Chargers. The Chargers, he was decent. Cook's been decent the last couple of years, not great, but the Chargers with Justin Herbert, if they're going to feature that tight end a little bit, I think in the red zone, he's somebody who I would take and be fine with having as a starting tight end.
I'm high on Kittles this year, off an injury. He's just a football player, someone that's going to play really hard. And I think, whether it's Garoppolo or Trey Lance, tight ends are really good for those quarterbacks.
Sure.
And what better tight end than Kittles? People forget he was stinking good.
Oh, yeah, he was good, yeah.
And I'm pretty high on him. But hey, Tito, this was awesome. This was fun. We are going to wrap things up. Again, coming at you in a couple of days, our quarterback tiers list, then our running back tiers list episode, then our receiver. We're just really going to hit it all for you. So stick tight. Catch all those episodes in the Premier Fantasy podcast feed. Tito is going to be hosting that. I'll be joining him. And that does it for this episode of the Chase Smith podcast. Thank you all so much for downloading and listening. Shouts to the Press Play Podcast Network for making this possible. Follow us online, Press Play Pods. Visit our website at pressplaypodcast.com to keep up with all of our shows and network news. Shouts to Tito.
My man, thanks, Chase. @ThatHappens on Twitter. Hit me up.
@ThatHappens. Tito, when are you going to be dropping new episodes on the Premier Fantasy Podcast during the NFL season? Drop us with a little bit of some knowledge, buddy.
August 12th, we'll start doing you and I will go down, break through the quarterbacks and all of that, and we'll always hit the news, all the updated news on the other positions as well, what's going on, and then we'll knock out some of the other positions starting on the 14th.
Love it, love it, love it. Hey, man, we'll talk soon. And, hey, guys, happy drafting if you don't catch those episodes. But, really, check those out. Get all the information you can. Just don't go into drafts blind. We're going to try to help you out this season, all right?